Am I live? We are live. Oh my God, that was like pulling teeth, violent. Oh my goodness. Whew, we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where in the world that you are. My name is Todd Standing. I'm the man who takes people out into the field and has them either live interact with or eyewitness a Sasquatch. I was supposed to be going to New York, tomorrow. Not going to happen now because of the COVID and the new all the new issues going on with COVID. So respect to that, respect to New York State. Hello, Andy. Hello, Roxanne. So it was a bit of a secret. I was keeping it quiet and very disappointed. I just canceled my plane today. And had two awesome expeditioners. Probably that'll be on here today. There's no secret. Jonathan and Kyle and another gentleman from New York State, Scout, who actually, Scout was out here with me. He did Nordegg a couple years ago, so we had just tremendous success with him. So great questions on Facebook today. My goodness. I'm going to get into the Facebook questions, but I had to do this. So I was just so flattered. This young man here, I don't know if I should say his name. I'll call him James from Manchester. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This 12-year-old boy did a Bigfoot presentation during COVID, and he wrote this incredible little book and sent it to me. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. Look at that artist's work. It's a glossy paper there in front of it. So take that glossy paper. 12-year-old. This is one of the future Sasquatch researchers. Just really impressed with this amazing book. Talks about, there's chapters in it, and I haven't been able to read it all yet. I had a colleague of mine read it. There's a section on John Better, Jeff Meldrum, and that's a picture of Jake. So very insightful. I want to teach people of all ages, old and young, and this is because of young men like this and older men like me, and even older men like John Betternagel, rest in peace, and Jeff Meldrum. This research will move forward. It'll never stop. So once we discover the species, it'll just keep moving forward. So just fantastic. I mean, 12-year-old. Look at that. Isn't that just amazing? Bigfoot Sasquatch. He's from the United Kingdom, and if he's watching today, I'm just so flattered that you sent this to me, young man. I'm very impressed with your work, young man. And well done, young man. So questions from Facebook. So I'm going to answer some stuff because the snow has flown out here in Canada. Tremendous winter, because the winter, like they say in Game of Thrones, winter is coming and winter is here. Man, I am a Northman, and I'll tell you, winter is tough. Only the strongest survive in the winter. And when you chase an animal around, or when you're out in the wilderness and you're affecting the movement of different species, it damages them to the point where it could actually kill them. So you ride a snowmobile through a particular area where there are deer, and you run them hard one day and they can't get the calories to survive. That's how hard it is, and that's the way it would be with Sasquatch. If I went out and went into an area where the Sasquatch were in a cave trying to survive, and I forced them to move out of that cave to another area, the old and the young would probably die. And I will not be responsible, even potentially. What if there's a younger baby that was just born a month ago and he can't survive the transition from one area to another? I'm not going to do that kind of damage. Winter, and those of you who don't know, winter is the toughest, hardest time to survive. It's brutal, it's exhausting, and you got to leave the Sasquatch alone. Survival is difficult enough, I'm sure. So now that I'm done for the year. More footage. Everybody wants more. There is no more footage from this year. Last year, I was able to acquire new footage, and I just haven't had the time to do my work with all the crap going on in my life right now. It's been the hardest year of my life personally, by far. My father passed away just recently, which was very difficult, and there's even worse things than that going on in my life that I'm not allowed to talk about till later. So in January, I'll start getting into other issues that have been going on in my life, but for now they have to remain private. So we'll talk about Sasquatch and Bigfoot, which is a wonderful topic. Another gentleman from Facebook asked me about migration, and I just don't see it. I think I've talked about this before, but they just follow the food sources. So when the salmon spawn, they're going to move to where the salmon are spawning. When the berries are rich in a certain area, they're going to move to certain areas, right? They'll follow the elk, which is their main food source from where I can see it in the Pacific Northwest, where I've studied them all the way from British Columbia down into Montana, Idaho, into Washington State. I'm just tremendously, it's quite obvious to me, even Montana, I spent a lot of time in Montana and Alberta. It's quite clear to me that they follow the elk herds around until other food sources pop up. And, there's so many more questions that we'll have to do some Sasquatch stay with the elk herds and protect them, because I see those elk herds are guarded, man. It's amazing the way that the life expectancy of young elk is so high when the Sasquatch are guarding them. They're like shepherds to these elk herds, which is very clear to me. A biologist that I worked with, worked in a national park, made a discovery that was so tremendous. Was quite mind-blowing. I'll even talk about it. So he discovered that this particular herd of elk was pushed into a national park when hunting season started. Well, the elk don't know where the park is, where the park boundaries are, and nobody could hunt them there. And then he started studying more about this herd, and he realized that babies had, the young had almost over a 90% survival rate, which is unheard of. Bears and mountain lions and wolves go after the young like crazy. Not in this herd for some reason. The life expectancy was way too high. However, what was mind-blowing was the males after the age of 3 had a death rate of 90%, which is what the young should have. Why is it that when they're 3-4 years old, at their strongest and best, they're dying off over 90%? And the answer is, and the females have a through rate of over 90%. So what's going on? The answer is the elk are using them like cattle. They're not damaging the females. They're just harvesting the young males that are tender and taste better. And hunters know this. Meat hunters know this. And that's what the Sasquatch are doing. They're tending their herds the same way a farmer tends his cattle. You don't kill the cows. You kill the bulls. You ever heard of prime beef? That's the young prime males. You kill them in their prime. They taste the best. They're not old. You don't eat an old bull. They're nasty. You turn those things into hamburger, they're all knotted up and old, and so the Sasquatch know this because they eat the elk. If you eat and consume elk, you will know this. You want what's tasty and tender, and you also want to harvest them from a perspective that will increase their population, not damage them. So less males means more room for females, which means more room for food. Males take up space, and they're not necessary. You only need one male or a few males to breed all the cows. So 2 or 3 stags can breed dozens of cows. So it's not rocket science, ladies and gentlemen, and the Sasquatch do this, and the Sasquatch know this, and it shouldn't surprise you because they're amazingly intelligent creatures. So the question is, why do they make noises like howling sounds or whoops? To communicate with us. That's it. They don't do it. I'm so convinced that they communicate through extrasensory perception that I'm not even going to make any bones about it anymore. It's very clear to me. They communicate through ESP on so many levels. They communicated that way with Survivor Man. They've communicated that way with me many times. It's just such a fact. It's so obvious to me that they have that ability to communicate that way, and I've proven it in an experiment that I was able to do in the United States with a group of Sasquatch that I've talked about before. And I will continue to do these experiments to substantiate and prove that they instantaneously communicate over great distance with each other through no other means, no sound, no electronic. It's simply through extrasensory perception. They have that ability. If you don't think that ability is real, if you still think that ability is paranormal, you're living in the 80s. It's over. Science accepts extrasensory perception. Remote viewing is an absolute reality. The CIA has used it. Harvard and Princeton have substantiated this. Oxford, these are facts. Extrasensory perception is an absolute reality. Psychic ability is real. Deal with it. So as a scientist, if you're still living in the dark ages and you still think those things aren't real, you're living in the dark ages. They're absolutely real. It's factual. And there's not one single person that I've ever sat down with in a 3-minute conversation and can't prove that extrasensory perception is real to anybody. It's stereoscopic. It's absolutely real. We have that ability. We simply do not nurture and practice it because it's pathetic that we don't use that. I don't know why. It's ridiculous. Somebody should be teaching this. And of course, I would sign up immediately. And actually, people are teaching it. It's that third eye spies. The man who made that movie, that man was part of the discovery of remote viewing, and he has ESP trainers. I have one on my phone. When I was training with it, it was working. My X-ray sensory perceptions were increasing, and it was highly advantageous. A good question: do they sweat or pant? Sweat. How do I know this? The way gorillas sweat is their pores, you can literally see their pores open and urine will drip out, and the smell comes out of them, and it's when they're highly in one of those fight or flight moments. So I know the Sasquatch do this because I've been around when the acute odor comes out of them. Panting doesn't do that. So when the Sasquatch were upset or angry at me, or I was messing with them, which happens very rarely, very, very rarely, maybe 5 times in my life, I've had that happen. And you could smell that sweet, gorilla-y kind of smell that people talk about. And when you smell that smell and it's old and sour, that's a Sasquatch